The Dominion's war hall shimmered with a cold, metallic sheen, its towering walls adorned with banners depicting the conquests of 1,000 worlds. Seated in a crescent formation, the high officers of the Empire exuded an air of superiority, their reptilian gazes locked onto the massive display at the center of the chamber. Holographic projections flickered, battle reports, enemy assessments, and one glaring anomaly, Earth. A hush settled as Commander Viacor rose from his seat, his imposing frame clad in ceremonial battle armor. His deep-set golden eyes swept across the gathered officers, then fixed on the image before him, an outdated ballistic rifle, primitive by Dominion standards. He exhaled, amusement flickering across his scaled face. "This," he drawled, tapping a claw against the projection, "is what humans rely on for long-range combat." A low murmur of laughter rippled through the hall. "Slug throwers," another officer scoffed. "Obsolete. Crude," added another. "How can they call themselves warriors?" Vigor allowed the amusement to linger before raising a hand for silence. The High Command grows restless. Earth's resistance, though insignificant in scale, has become irritating. He paced slowly, his armored boots echoing against the floor. And yet, despite our obvious technological superiority, their forces do not break as expected. They fight from the shadows, striking with unnatural precision. Our garrisons report casualties, not from direct combat, but from unseen foes eliminating soldiers one by one. His voice darkened. "They call them snipers." The laughter faded. Viacor turned back to the display, now showing scattered Dominion bodies in the ruins of a battlefield. Alien soldiers lay still, their armor pierced with precise, fatal shots. The angles of impact told a chilling story. Each kill had been calculated, measured, executed without hesitation. "It would seem," Viacor mused, "that humans believe themselves our equals in the art of war." He paused, letting the notion fester before a smirk curled the edges of his sharp jaw. "I propose we correct this misbelief." Excited murmurs spread through the hall. One officer leaned forward, his eyes gleaming. "You suggest a demonstration?" Viacor's expression remained unreadable. "More than that. A challenge. We make a spectacle of it. A hunt. The finest marksman of the Dominion against humanity's best. We shall prove, before the eyes of the galaxy, that their kind does not belong on the battlefield." The officers nodded in approval, the thrill of dominance igniting in their veins. "And when their champion falls," Viacor continued, voice thick with certainty, "their morale will crumble. Their soldiers will understand the futility of resistance. Earth will kneel." The challenge spread across the galactic network within hours. The Dominion, confident in their supremacy, broadcasted their terms. A controlled battlefield. A contest of skill. 10 of the Empire's most elite snipers against a single human. No reinforcements. No second chances. The galaxy reacted with intrigue, amusement, and a touch of pity. Humanity was known for its resilience, but in the face of such overwhelming odds, their lone representative would be reduced to nothing more than a cautionary tale. On Earth, the military command debated endlessly. Rejecting the challenge would signal weakness. Accepting it was a death sentence. And yet, before they could reach a decision, one man had already stepped forward. Elias Cross. His name carried little weight outside human military circles, but among snipers, it was spoken with reverence. A ghost on the battlefield, a marksman whose patience and precision had turned the tide of countless conflicts. Where others saw war as chaos, Elias saw patterns. Where others relied on numbers, he relied on singular, absolute lethality. As he entered the war room, the brass studied him with scrutinizing eyes. He was not a towering soldier, not an imposing figure draped in medals. Just a man, quiet and calm, his every movement deliberate. "You understand the risks," a general stated. Elias gave a slow nod. "I do. You'll be alone out there. I know." Another officer leaned forward. "Then why volunteer?" Elias's gaze was steady. "Because they think we're weak." A silence stretched between them. "They assume our weapons are primitive," he continued, "that because their rifles fire with light and plasma, they are superior. But war isn't won by the sophistication of a weapon. He let the words settle. It's won by the one who pulls the trigger. The generals exchanged glances, unspoken decisions passing between them. Finally, with a resigned nod, the highest-ranking officer issued the order. Get him prepped. The battlefield was a moon orbiting a dying star, its rocky terrain littered with jagged cliffs and deep craters. A perfect hunting ground. The Dominion arrived first, their gunships descending in a disciplined formation. The 10 snipers disembarked, their forms obscured by sleek, chameleon-like cloaks that blended with their surroundings. Their rifles, forged from the latest Dominion technology, hummed with lethal energy. Elias arrived alone. No escort. No theatrics. Just a single dropship, its ramp lowering as he stepped onto the barren surface, his long-range rifle strapped to his back. It was old by Dominion standards, kinetic, bolt action, reliant on physics rather than energy. A relic, they thought. The alien snipers watched him with smirks, their body language relaxed. This was not a fight to them, it was sport. A demonstration for the galaxy. Vikor, standing atop a nearby ridge, crossed his arms. Human, his voice boomed through the comms, broadcasted for all to hear. You have been given an opportunity to die with honor. Surrender now, and your species will be spared further humiliation. Elias met his gaze through his visor. When he spoke, his voice was measured, unreadable. I'll pass. The countdown began. A flare shot into the sky. The hunt was on. Elias didn't move immediately. That was the first mistake his enemies expected of him. To run, to seek cover in a panic. Instead, he studied the terrain, the wind patterns, the way the dust settled unnaturally in certain areas, hinting at disturbed ground. Then, with the smooth precision of a predator, he dropped into a crouch and vanished into the landscape. The Dominion snipers activated their optics, scanning the environment. Their tech painted the battlefield in enhanced detail, heat signatures, movement tracking, every advantage a warrior could ask for. And yet, within moments, their screens yielded nothing. Confusion flickered through the ranks. He's moving low, one of them muttered. Standard evasive tactic. Vikor listened, unimpressed. Then flush him out. The first shot rang out. Not from Elias. From a Dominion sniper, firing a warning shot into the rocks, attempting to drive the human into the open. No response. Another shot. Another. Dust kicked up, scattering across the wind. Still, nothing. Then, a whisper of movement. It was subtle. So subtle that by the time the first Dominion sniper registered the disturbance in his peripheral vision, it was already too late. A single suppressed shot. A Dominion body hit the ground. For the first time in the Empire's history, silence was not a sign of control. It was the presence of something far deadlier. The human had drawn first blood. And the hunt had only just begun. A dead silence stretched across the battlefield, thick and unnatural. A moment ago, there had been 10 Dominion snipers. Now, there were 9. Vikor narrowed his reptilian eyes, staring at the lifeless body sprawled against the rocky terrain. The kill had been surgical, one clean shot to the skull, no wasted movement, no hesitation. There had been no warning, no flicker of heat, no ripple of motion. The human had fired once, then disappeared like a phantom. A sharp exhale sounded through the comms. Where did that shot come from? Unknown, another sniper responded. His voice, once cocky, now carried an undercurrent of unease. We've got no visual. Vikor's jaw tightened. Then find him. The remaining snipers adjusted their stances, scanning the terrain through their advanced optics. Their rifles, forged with Dominion precision, pulsed with detection software capable of tracking even the most minute fluctuations in temperature. The human should have been easy to locate. Yet, as seconds dragged into minutes, the scanners returned nothing. He's hiding, one of them muttered. Typical human cowardice. Vikor remained still, processing. No, this wasn't cowardice. This was patience. He had studied human warfare, had analyzed their battles. Their kind did not fight like the Dominion, did not rely on sheer numbers or overwhelming force. They thrived in asymmetry, in using the enemy's confidence against them. This was not a duel. It was a hunt, and they were the prey. The realization settled like a weight in his chest. "He's watching us," Viacor said, voice low. "He knows how we move, how we think. We are no longer hunting him. He is hunting us." A ripple of unease passed through his squad. They were Dominion snipers, elite among the elite, trained in every known battlefield environment. And yet, the human had already dictated the terms of engagement with a single pull of the trigger. One of the younger snipers, Rakis, exhaled sharply. "We need to reposition. Spread out, make him pick a target." Negative. Viacor's command was immediate. "That is exactly what he wants." But Rakis was already moving. Ignoring protocol, he sprinted toward a higher vantage point, seeking an overlook from which he could flush out the human's location. His boots kicked up dust, his breathing sharp through the comms. A single, muffled crack split the air. The squad barely had time to react before Rakis's body folded mid-stride, momentum carrying him forward before he hit the ground, motionless. Another perfect shot. Another sniper gone. Panic laced through the comms. "He's taking us apart. He's got a thermal cloak. There's no way he's invisible to our optics." Viacor clenched his fists. It wasn't technology keeping the human hidden. It was experience. He was using the terrain itself, manipulating the dust and shadows, controlling their perceptions. He wasn't a soldier anymore. He was a ghost. The Dominion's overconfidence had been their first mistake. Their second mistake was assuming they could adapt fast enough. Viacor took a slow breath, forcing his emotions into stillness. Fear was a tool of the weak, and he was no fool. "He's circling us," he said, recalculating the battle in his mind. "He doesn't fire at random. Every shot is deliberate. He studies his targets, waits until he understands their habits, then eliminates them." A pause. "He will not stop." The comms fell silent. The surviving snipers, once so arrogant, now stood frozen in the dust. Then a voice, low, cold, and unfamiliar, broke through their channel. "You should have stayed quiet." For a fraction of a second, time itself seemed to hold its breath. Then another shot rang out. Another body fell. This time, the panic was unrestrained. The Dominion soldiers broke formation, darting for cover, their discipline unraveling with each breath. They were the best marksmen the Empire had to offer, but they had never fought an enemy like this. A single soldier. A single rifle. And yet, they were the ones being erased. Viacor gritted his teeth. "Enough. Stop running," he commanded, his voice slicing through the comms. "You disgrace yourselves." A pause, ragged breathing filling the channel. Then, reluctantly, the remaining 6 snipers stilled. Viacor's mind worked at blistering speed. Their previous methods were worthless. Their technology was useless. If they wanted to survive, they had to think as the human thought. He analyzed Elias's kills, tracing a pattern. Every shot had been fired with purpose, manipulating their movements, herding them like cattle. Viacor had spent his life perfecting the art of war, but now, he realized, so had his opponent. "This is not a fight," he murmured. "This is a lesson." And the Dominion was failing. He activated his visor, switching to manual calibration. The human was avoiding thermal scans, so he had to be hiding his body heat. That meant positioning himself near natural disruptions, cooling rock formations, pockets of air currents that dispersed his signature. Viacor narrowed his gaze, scanning the ridges above them. A subtle shift in the dust, imperceptible to a machine, obvious to a hunter. Viacor lifted his rifle, exhaling slowly. He had only one chance. His claw tightened around the trigger. And then, nothing. Elias was already gone. A warning spike of instinct shot through Viacor's nerves. "Move. Now." He twisted sharply, throwing himself to the ground just as a round slammed into the rock where his head had been a second earlier. The force of the impact sent debris scattering, and Vacor rolled, finding cover. A near miss. The first in the entire battle. A cold realization spread through his chest. He knew. The human had let him see him. Vicar's breath came slow and controlled, but the weight of it pressed heavy against his ribs. This wasn't just skill. It was control. The human had tested him, had allowed him to react, just to see what he would do. Elias wasn't just eliminating them. He was studying them. The Dominion sniper forced his mind into clarity. This changed everything. The human had spared him once, but he would not make the same mistake twice. Vacor activated his comms. Regroup. Now. The remaining 5 snipers moved quickly, rallying near his position. Their pride had been shattered, their confidence reduced to raw survival instinct. But something was different now. Vacor had seen the human's eyes through his scope. There had been no anger, no hatred, only calculation. And something else. Satisfaction. The hunt had only just begun. The battlefield had grown eerily still. The dust no longer swirled from hurried footsteps. The echoes of gunfire had faded into a silence so thick it pressed against the skin like a second layer. 5 Dominion snipers remained. 5 warriors who had once believed themselves superior, untouchable, the apex predators of the battlefield. Now, they moved with caution, their arrogance stripped away, their breath measured and shallow. Above them, perched in the jagged terrain, Elias Cross watched. His body was still, his rifle an extension of his very being. The Dominion had learned. They no longer rushed, no longer called out or made careless movements. They had abandoned the comforts of their technology, forced into a battle of instinct, of patience. Good. Elias adjusted his scope, tracking their positions. They were moving in calculated patterns now, tighter formations, keeping each other in sight. Smart. It made them harder to isolate, harder to pick apart one by one. But not impossible. The wind shifted, a subtle whisper through the canyon. A disturbance in the dust told Elias everything he needed to know. One of them had broken formation, likely circling wide to flank him. A bold move, one that relied on the assumption that Elias was stationary. He exhaled. A breath. A trigger squeeze. The shot cracked through the silence, a single suppressed note of finality. Far below, the Dominion sniper staggered, clutching at his throat. No scream. Just a gurgling rasp before he crumpled, his rifle slipping from lifeless fingers. 4 left. The comms erupted. Damn it, he's still shifting position. He's controlling the engagement, forcing us to react. Vacor's voice cut through the noise, sharp and cold. Enough. We finish this. Elias heard it, and a slow smirk curled at the corner of his lips. Finally. He had seen this moment coming the instant he took the first shot. They weren't running anymore. They were preparing for a kill. He shifted, smoothly repositioning behind a craggy outcrop, his mind working through the possibilities. The Dominion had given up on fighting him conventionally. Now they would attempt to bait him, to make him take a shot that revealed his location beyond doubt. Clever. But he had already planned for this. Minutes passed. The wind howled through the ravine. The Dominion held their ground, resisting the urge to move recklessly. Their patience had grown, their minds adapting. Elias respected that. But respect didn't mean mercy. His rifle remained steady, the crosshairs settling on the next target. He wasn't looking for the obvious. He was watching for the tells, the way the soldier's grip on the rifle had shifted, the slight angling of his body that suggested tension, a readiness to dodge at the first sign of movement. They were waiting for him. So he gave them nothing. Instead, he fired at a loose rock above them. The impact sent it tumbling, dislodging a cascade of debris. The Dominion snipers instinctively shifted, only for Elias to fire again, this time at the exposed soldier mid-motion. A perfect shot. 3 left. The remaining snipers scattered, breaking into evasive positions. It wouldn't help. Elias was already moving. He never stayed in one place, never gave them a chance to retaliate. They were fighting against time, not distance, Every second they hesitated was another second closer to their inevitable deaths. Then, the air changed. A soundless shift, so imperceptible that only Elias's instincts caught it. He pivoted sharply, pressing himself flat against the rock just as a shot hissed past, scorching the air where his head had been a moment earlier. His heart didn't race. Good shot. Good discipline. Elias adjusted his grip, a flicker of something dark curling in his chest. This was it. The moment the Dominion commander had been waiting for. The battlefield was no longer about tactics. No longer about numbers. It was a duel now. Hunter against hunter. One of them would not walk away. Elias inhaled slowly, steadying himself. He had seen Viecor's movements, had tracked the way he adjusted his body with every shot. The Dominion sniper was experienced, but predictable. Another shot rang out. Elias didn't flinch. He's testing me. Trying to force a reaction. He wouldn't give him one. Elias reached for a small reflective shard, positioning it at an angle against the rock. Through the distorted reflection, he caught a glimpse of Viecor's position, perched on a high ledge, using the last of his squad to bait Elias into an open shot. Smart. But not smart enough. Elias's hand moved with practiced efficiency, unhooking a combat knife from his belt. With a calculated flick, he sent it sailing through the air, clattering against a rock near the Dominion soldiers. The noise made them flinch. That half-second of distraction was all Elias needed. He fired. The second-to-last sniper dropped, body slumping before his mind even registered death. Only Viecor remained. The Dominion commander didn't react immediately. His breathing was steady, his rifle still raised. But something had changed. Elias could feel it. A shift in the atmosphere. This was no longer about the mission. It was personal. Viecor moved first. His shot came fast, precise, a near-perfect execution, aimed directly for where Elias had been only a heartbeat ago. But Elias had already moved, anticipating the attack before it came. The duel began. Neither wasted time. Neither wasted shots. Every round fired was calculated, every angle adjusted within fractions of a second. The terrain between them became a battlefield of echoes, the air alive with silent death. Viecor was fast. Elias was faster. The Dominion sniper's tactics were methodical, honed through years of war. But Elias didn't fight by method. He fought by instinct. By control. A sharp gust of wind rolled through the canyon, momentarily kicking up a cloud of dust. Elias saw his opportunity. He shifted low, rolling into position, his rifle steady. One shot. One breath. His finger curled over the trigger. Fire. The bullet sliced through the dust, through the space where Viecor was moving, through the air he had not yet touched. And then it hit. A perfect shot. Viecor's body jerked, his rifle slipping from his grasp as his balance faltered. For the first time, his breath hitched. Slowly, he sank to his knees. Elias approached, his rifle lowered. Not out of arrogance. Not out of pity. But out of respect. Viecor's golden eyes lifted, locking onto Elias's own. There was no hatred in them. No fury. Only understanding. The Dominion had come to prove their superiority. Instead, they had learned what true hunters were. Elias inclined his head slightly. A soldier's farewell. Viecor exhaled one last time. Then, the battlefield fell silent. The dust had barely settled when Elias Cross finally lowered his rifle. The scent of scorched air and blood clung to the battlefield, a lingering reminder of what had transpired. The Dominion's elite had come to hunt a human, confident in their superiority. Now, they lay lifeless, their weapons cold, their pride shattered beneath the weight of their final lesson. He exhaled, steadying his heartbeat. The thrill of battle had already begun to fade, replaced by something quieter. Not victory. Not satisfaction. Just stillness. He turned his gaze toward Viecor's body. The Dominion sniper had landed hard against the jagged rock, one clawed hand still loosely grasping his rifle, as if he had refused to let go even in death. Elias stepped closer, crouching beside him. Golden, reptilian eyes, now dimmed, stared back at him. But there was no fear in them, no rage. Just a quiet understanding, a warrior's acceptance. Elias gave a small nod. "You were good," he murmured, voice low. "Damn good." Silence answered him. For a moment, he lingered. He had faced many enemies before, had seen them fall at his hands, but Viecourt had been different. He hadn't just been another Dominion soldier. He had been a hunter, a man who had adapted, who had understood the rules of the battlefield in ways few ever did. Elias reached out, closing the alien's eyes with a quiet reverence. Then he rose. The mission wasn't over yet. He scanned the battlefield. The Dominion squad had arrived with a full team of 10. None had survived. Their bodies were scattered across the ravine, weapons abandoned, their arrogance undone by a single man. Elias moved through the debris, his steps silent, methodical. He had to be quick. The Dominion never sent their best without backup nearby. Someone would come looking. He reached the sniper position farthest from the main fight, a younger warrior, Rakis, if you remember the name correctly. The first to break formation. The first to fall. Elias crouched, removing a data chip from the soldier's tactical vest. The Dominion used encrypted battle logs, and if there was any intel on why these snipers had been deployed here, it would be on this. Slipping it into his own equipment, he straightened. Then he heard it. A faint pulse in the distance. A low hum, like a predator stirring from slumber. Dominion reinforcements. His jaw tightened. They were early. Elias lifted his gaze toward the horizon. A Dominion dropship had appeared, gliding over the rocky terrain, its sleek form cutting through the thin atmosphere with lethal precision. They weren't searching. They already knew. He had stayed too long. He moved, swift and efficient, sliding behind cover as the dropship circled overhead. It was scanning the battlefield now, red lights sweeping across the ground, seeking movement, heat signatures, anything that indicated life. Elias kept his breathing shallow. They wouldn't see him. Not yet. But they would find the bodies. Sure enough, a loud, crackling transmission cut through the comms. Squad 1, report. A pause. Static. No response. The voice on the other end grew sharper, more commanding. Viecourt, respond. What is your status? More silence. Then, after a long, terrible beat. Sir, we're seeing bodies. The Dominion officer's response was immediate. How many? Another pause. And all of them. A stunned silence followed. Elias imagined the confusion, the disbelief seeping into their bones. A full squad of the Dominion's finest, erased. They hadn't even gotten a distress call. The officer's voice returned, quieter this time. Scan the area. Find the attacker. Elias didn't give them the chance. With fluid precision, he lifted his rifle, targeting the dropship's sensor array. He had one shot. If he missed, they would locate him within seconds. He fired. A sharp crack split the air as the bullet tore through the ship's underbelly, severing its primary scanning system. The red lights flickered, then died. Panic spread through the comms. We've lost visuals. Damn it. Where is he? Elias was already moving, slipping through the jagged terrain, silent as a shadow. He wouldn't fight them. Not now. His mission was complete. Extraction was 20 clicks north. His rendezvous point, where an unmarked human vessel would be waiting. The Dominion might have ruled the stars, but down here? Down here, in the dust and stone, in the places where war was fought with patience and precision, they were still learning. And Elias Cross had just given them a lesson they would never forget. The shouts from the Dominion squad faded behind him as he disappeared into the wilderness, a ghost vanishing into the night.